Gaffer, we're speaking 3 weeks after we've won the title, 2 weeks after we've lifted that magnificent trophy next year. How's it been to be around Thistle over the last month or so?
Well, it's been great. It's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think in April or just before and just after, when we were on that such a good run, I was trying not to do any kind of media stuff apart from obviously with your good self. But since that magical Thursday night, it's been terrific. There's a real freshness and a lot of momentum around the club, which is my job to make sure that remains going into the new season. But listen, it's not quite the League Cup in '71, our greatest ever day. It's not the Scottish Cup in 1921, and it's not even a championship trophy, but it is a trophy and we're all thrilled.
Let's go right back to the very start. We came back for pre-season training in late August. It had been about 5.5 months that players hadn't been able to do anything. At that stage, what did you expect from the season? Well,
I expected to win the league, but expecting is probably the wrong word. I mean, I thought we had a real chance, and I know everybody was a bit down about the start of the season. It was hard for the players. It was not just at our club, but every club that had went through that. But I always felt we felt that Falkirk were, I think on record as saying that Falkirk were the team that we would probably have to finish above. As it turns out, they kind of plummeted, unfortunately for them. But even the game out there when we drew 2-2, they scored a real fluke goal that was offside, and then we went 2-1 up. We missed a penalty and ended up drew with an 88th minute goal. And I kept reminding the players about that because we hammered them that day and we should have won comfortably. I won't even talk about the Dumbarton game. So certainly for Brian Graham's sake. So I was a lot more positive than an awful lot of other people around, and in this day and age, in the day of social media, you can't mention injuries, you can't mention things like that because it's just it's excuses. But it really was kind of incredible for that period of time. And the funny thing was, it wasn't muscle injuries, it was, I think we had 4 or 5 knee operations, because you expect maybe when players are off so long that you might get muscle strains, hamstrings, calves, but it was, as I say, about the knee operation. So that was very, very tough. Obviously, we would have liked the results to be better, but we always felt, even looking at a pessimistic way, we should have been 5, 6, 7 points better off, and we still had some players who I thought would make a real impact. Best example is Zach Rudden, to come back, to get fit and come back. So I was never quite as forlorn or down as everybody else seemed to be.
As all those players were starting to come back, like Zach Rudden, Kieran McKenna played against Falkirk in Boxing Day, Blair Spittle was getting back to fitness, the league shut down, and that just threw everything back up in the air again for us, didn't it? Yeah,
it did. We had a lot of players, 5 or 6 lined up, and we actually wanted to redo all of that, and we're probably not the only club that had to do that, but we got a bit of fortune when Ryan Williamson got himself fit. Rangers were good enough to, because young Adam wasn't going to get a lot of game time, to take him back, which allowed us obviously to get Tiffany back in, and the rest is kind of history for what he did for us. So around that time though, the Jerry, Britton and Jackie were absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. I know there's a lot of stuff, I'm not on social media, and I don't do Facebook, and I don't do Twitter, and I don't do Instagram, but I know there's a lot of stuff, but they've been fantastic for me, and fans. I think everybody, we've all got to be going one way now, and I think, if I was, a supporter, would ask yourself, has Jackie made a couple of mistakes? Has Jerry made a couple of mistakes? Probably. Have I? Well, I've made 10 times the amount of mistakes that those two have made. I give you 4 for at home. But ask all the fans to ask themselves, have they made mistakes in their life? Have they, in their private life, in their working life? Of course not. Jackie Lowe and Jerry Britton just worked tirelessly for this place. And listen, I'm not saying the board meeting we had on the Wednesday after the East Fife game wasn't a particularly pleasurable experience for me, but right throughout it, they kind of had my back, and I'll always be appreciative of that, and hopefully I've paid them back now with a good feeling at the club for the first time for a number of years, and I won't even go into that. But the good feeling that we've all got to take forward, all the supporters, the staff, including yourself, the players, my staff, directors, everybody together has got to be off going one way. That's the only way we'll get back, not to where we belong, because we can't say we belong in the Premier League. Of course we don't, but we're one of 8 to 10 clubs that should be around there, and we want to do that.
During that shutdown, there was obviously the threat that we might not come back at all, and I think, as you mentioned there, Jerry and Jackie were instrumental in representing the Thistle cause as part of the 20 clubs that all united together to say we want to go back and play football, and in March we could.
Yeah, well, listen, I hope the chairman, Jackie, doesn't mind me telling this story, because it was quite funny, because she did drive it and she got everybody together with Jerry, and fantastic. And at the time when we were trailing by 6, 7, 8 points, I thought the extra 4 games was a great thing, gave us a better opportunity. But when we went 2 points clear after 18 games, I always remember going out and saying, whose idea was it to get extra 4 games? And I think Jackie could have shot me at that point, but we got there, and it didn't seem comfortable at the time, but to go in the last game of the season and about 10 players didn't play in that game suggests that at the end up it was comfortable. But all hats off to Jackie and Jerry for doing that.
When we came back for that pre-season training, I think we had only 2 weeks before the Cove game. We were a handful of points off the top.
Yeah.
Players came back fit and ready to play, because they kept themselves ticking over and in really good shape over the lockdown too.
Yeah, terrific. And there was a lack of match practice. I think in the Cove game we saw that. I think if I look back at that game at 1-0 up, we should have won it probably. I think Young Sen had a really good chance to put us 2-0 up, but I think both teams looked quite rusty. I never saw all the other games, but I would presume that a lot of the teams, after such a long layoff and then to have 10 days, 12 days to get back, was pretty tough, and it took us a little time to hit our stride, but when we did, it was pretty remarkable stuff.
The game people keep referring back to is that Forfar game where you've just admitted it was one of your mistakes, but would you say that it was also a chance of you were giving players minutes to try and keep them fresh that proved needed, or am I just being too...
Yeah, no, listen, I think there was 1 or 2 things that I had to do that night, but listen, I shouldn't have made any changes. That was just a boo-boo by me, and we nearly paid for it. But giving Zach Rudden minutes and giving Ross Docherty minutes, I think that probably was the right thing to do looking forward, and the impact they had. But ultimately, listen, it wasn't a particularly great decision by me, and a lot of people were not slow to tell me.
That's just part and parcel of football, because you look at it, a week later we go to East Fife with salvaged a draw in the 95th minute, and I remember being around the dressing room when you were talking to 2 or 3 players and you were saying at that point, this could be a really big point for us.
Yeah, I mentioned the board meeting I had the night after that, which I had to take. I went to with a hard hat on and was getting all sorts of stuff, and rightly so. I think the first half we were really poor. I think we could have scored a couple of goals in the first half as well, but the second half, which I know we're going to talk about Joe Carter, but we brought Joe on and Stephen Bell on, and they totally changed the game, and I just got the feeling after it. I spoke to all the players who were really, really down, because we did have some really good... Zach had a couple of great chances. The Zach Rudden from 3 weeks after that would have put him in with his eyes closed. So I just had the feeling at the time that it was a really, really important point, and and again it comes down to one of the things I stressed was, we've tried to bring more humility to the club, and I don't think part of this have any divine right to win at East Fife. They had the best home record in the league up to that point. I think by the end it was maybe us, but we had no divine right to win these games. You'd never have a divine right to win any football match. I just felt, and there was a bit of a wind that night, I'll say, but I just felt that point coming away from the pitch, I wasn't shouting and ranting and raving. I just felt it was quite important, but not for a minute did I think the next 7 or 8 games would win 7, draw 1, and score 20 odd goals, 24, whatever, and lose 2 goals. I didn't think that.
We then went to Peterhead. It was a really tough match, but we managed to get a comfortable scoreline. We then got past a stubborn Clyde side out of Firhill, who were looking like they were taking a point for long.
Well, that was a pivotal moment. Zach Rudden's goal with his chest was a pivotal moment, because after that, basically the boy just took off, and he was the player that we had seen in training. I think a lot of people didn't get the fact they'd maybe trained as a professional footballer for 8 weeks in the last 16 months, and he wasn't going to come back really, really quickly. And I said all along, if he gets a bit of luck with fitness, I think we've got a real player there. And that night, when he did do that was also a part of the togetherness I felt when you were probably around it, Graham, but when Zach walked into the dressing room after it, everybody was cheering him because they were so delighted for that to happen. And after that, Zach just took off, and at that level in League One, and I'm not being disrespectful to League One, some of the defenders just couldn't handle.
None more so than the game after that, which was Montrose, and that was when you just seen everyone start to take off. And
yeah, well, it was funny, the Thursday night games, but the two Thursday night games, we won them both 5-0, and that's when we were right in the middle of a really tough schedule. But yeah, that night was great to see his first. Was it his first goal? I can't remember. The striker play with Brian Graham was just great to see. It's not a thing you see a lot these days. Albeit I think that'll come back. I think that'll be one of the things that comes back in the next 4 or 5 years. But yeah, I mean, it was great to see, and we always felt, having played the teams at Montrose and Cove, were the best footballing sides apart from us. So to win 5-0 that night was fabulous.
So as you mentioned, we wanted Dumbarton to go top after 18 games. We went to the split. We play a draw at home. First half, brilliant. Should have scored more than one. 94th minute, they hit the post. It bounces away. Absolutely.
I mean, we should have been 2 or 3 nothing up at half time. Pretty comfortable, and as it gets towards the end of the game, Airdrie are the type of team that throw up big centre backs and various people. And I made an absolute terrible mistake of saying their goalie is capable of making a mistake, and he was absolutely fantastic that night. But then it hits the point. Airdrie out with us with the form team. We were the only team that beat them. But I mean, they hit the post, but I don't think anybody could say we weren't worthy winners. I'm pretty sure we were.
We then travelled up to Cove midweek, and we went through a full range of emotions throughout that game. But the one thing that I think was picked up by supporters from what I could see is when Scott Tiffany equalises, your hat came off, the whole bench was out celebrating. It showed how much it meant at such a big time. Yeah, well, Brian Graham was a great example of that, because I took him off because he just wasn't right. He was struggling with his back, his ribs, etc. Said that he shouldn't really have played, but he jumped. The highest he jumped all night was when Tiff scored. But that was a game that we could have lost. It was a game we could have won. I think draw was probably fair, but again, you always felt that was a pretty important point, and it was. And then we hosted Falkirk on that Thursday night. I was in early to prepare for the match, and there was a little bit of nervousness around the office and excitement of what could lie ahead. When you, your coaching staff and the players came in, the calmest people in the stadium, and what 90 minutes. Yeah, but I tried to do that. We all tried to do it to keep it, on an even keel, and use the adrenaline that the players obviously had. I mean, that's the only reason I think. That's the only reason I can think of that like Foster or Bell, who were absolutely outstanding in the running, that they get through all these games, at their age. And I mean, Foster's a great example, because you're telling him to, just because he's a really good defender, he knows his position really well, you're telling him to sit in and don't go forward, and then he's running 60 yards out of the park, running 30 yards back to get a ball, and it must have been adrenaline getting them through it. But on that night we were irresistible, and that was the biggest night where I felt absolutely gutted for 7, 8, 9,000 Jags fans that couldn't have been there, albeit after the game it felt there was about 7, 8, 9,000 out the street. So it was a great night, and we played ever so well. And from the staff's point of view, Scally had said to me that at my previous club there was a number of games that we were 3-4 nothing up. And we hadn't had many that you could go and enjoy it, but being 4-0 up with whatever it was, we kind of knew, albeit Archie, his experience, he was thinking, no, it's not over yet. So, but we kind of knew, and it was very much to be enjoyed. And if I'm brutally honest, I don't want to be too hard on Falkirk, because a great club. I had great times there as a player, and great times as a manager for a short spell, but it could have been more than 5. If I'm being brutally honest, it could have been a lot more than 5. And then just the title party began. We had great celebrations on that Thursday night. We played a game in Troyes, which the result didn't go away, but we played well, and we saw the emergence of 2 youngsters in Billy Owens and James Lyon getting. Yeah, I mean, I really like the Montrose guys. I really like Stuart, and I think they've got a real good idea. So we went up there to win the game, and to be perfectly honest, in the last 20 minutes of the game, we probably should have won the game. We had chances to win the game, and then we were hit in the 80th minute. But it was great. I think there was about 8, 9 of them regulars not playing. Some of them didn't even travel. So Billy Owens come on, did really well, and James Lyon I thought was terrific. He's got, I don't want to build him up too much, but he's got things that personally I love, and he's got things that I think you can't really coach, the way he receives the ball, the way he drifts past people. And we've got a big decision to make about James. I don't want to bang on too much about it, but I think the best thing for him would be for us to put him out on loan for a season, exactly like I did with Stuart Bannigan as a 16, 17 year old who went to Ayr United.
and had a great season, got promoted, came back here, and obviously the rest is history. Bannigan, who I think is the beating heart of this football club. But the thing about James is I'm not ruling out that he might have a part to play in our first team. I think he might be that good. I say that he's a very level-headed boy, so I don't want to put too much pressure on him.
And after a night of celebration, you were back into your office at 9 o'clock the next morning, and this is the stage of the season where, because we're going up a level, tough decisions need to be made.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the 5 lone boys go back to their parent clubs, albeit, and with our thanks. Obviously, the one notable one who wasn't able to come, the one bona fide part of Thistle legend, who's Chris Erskine, and he was gutted. It's his first time he's done a hamstring, but I spoke to him today and he's getting a lot better. So, and they all contributed. I think Bell in particular was really pivotal. I think Tiffany rivalled him as well. And you know what? Just because they're back just now might not mean they won't be back here. So let's just watch this space.
The one that we announced earlier this week that's maybe divided suppose a little bit is Joe Cardle. What was the reasoning and rationale?
Yeah, listen, that was a hard one, and it was very emotional. As you know, I actually personally wrote the press release, or whatever we do it, so because that's how much I feel about it, because ultimately he changed the game at East 5, and that led us to that run, and he was terrific. I think 7 goals, 10 assists. I just felt with Tony, I mean, the reason we remained private, there was no falling out. Joe was great, we had a cuddle when he left, and it was really, really tough. But I felt he may just have been a good sub, and for Joe, he's such a, I mean, Joe Cardle, when I arrived, there wasn't a good level of professionalism and the type of boys, and Cardle wasn't one of them. I mean, right through, you've seen it right through this. You go to the west of Scotland, and when these young boys are walking in, Joe Cardle's on his mat doing his sit-ups and his bodies and doing his pull-ups, and he's a great example. So I think my advice was, and whether he'll take it or not, is to go somewhere he's going to play all the time, and there's an awful lot of clubs where he will play all the time. So that was a really, really tough one, but I said in the thing, him and his family will be welcome back to Firhill anytime.
Ryan Williamson is another one that moves on with our best wishes and prospects for the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's no great secret that he's pre-contacted somewhere. We probably could have got him out of that, but we just felt at the time was probably right with us signing Kevin Holt, who we might talk about in a minute, that it may allow Foster, when he will sign, to go over to right back. So you've got Kieran McKenna there as well, and so it was the right time. And Ryan knows what I think. I spoke to him, and I think if he improves defensively, he can have a big future. And listen, he's going to a good club, so he goes with our best wishes.
There are a couple of players still whose contract expires. Are talks still ongoing with those guys on an individual basis?
Yeah, I think the two I spoke to, Sneds and Shea, today. I have to speak to Stephen Bell tomorrow. I think I need to speak to Charlie. Yeah, they're all ongoing just now. Yeah.
One other good boost we got earlier this week was contract extensions. Stuart Bannigan, Ross Docherty, Brian Graham, they've all pledged an extra year, and I guess that maybe shows the togetherness that's been spotted.
Well, that's one thing that the board have been great with. I mean, maybe I'm being naive because I'm eating into the budget, and I need that, which we'll go on to talk about, no doubt. And but I just feel I don't want any of these guys going into last year of contract. There's another two where there's no secret. We're trying to do it with Darren and Zach. So. And I think we'll hopefully get at least one of them done. I just don't want them going in the last year because they are the bedrock. They're leaders, they're great guys, and more importantly, they're good footballers.
We've brought in our first summer signing, Kevin Holt. He comes in, and he said himself it was just a connection through Neil Scally that made you aware of what a quality player he is.
Listen, I know the player, but Scal brought him through at Queen's as a kid, and I actually played with his father, my brother played with his father, who was a very talented player. I think he went to Airdrie for a couple of seasons, but yeah, I know all about him, and I just think he gives us that. I mean, I'm saying to Archie, there was a couple of games at the end of last season we didn't have one left-footed player on the team, albeit it worked with Penrith playing the right, because I thought he did his best game for us, but yeah, he gives us that natural balance, and what he does do as well is that he's in the prime of his career. He's the next 3 or 4 years of his prime, so left back, but he can also play left centre back, so it gives us that kind of added cover. So I was delighted to get him.
I know you've got a whole big list of targets, probably a book long if you could choose. Is this the type of season where you enjoy it, when you can sort of go and say, who can I get in to go and build a squad for next year?
This is the time of the season, particularly after what we've done, that I fret, because I really want to get the boys in that I want, and I've spoke to a few of them already. And at times, at times it comes down to how well I know them, at times it comes down to finance. But I do think we need, along with Kevin, I think we need another 4 or 5 in, and they've got to be players of a calibre that improve us, and I'm hopeful to do that.
So as we're talking, it's middle of May at the moment. What was the pre-season landscape looking like? Do you have dates yet for when you come back?
We'll be back on the 10th of June. I think we're going to do the testing with Ross Maitland on I think that's the Thursday, and then they'll do some training on the Friday, then have the weekend off and start properly on the Monday. So it seems to be getting less and less time, but the first League Cup game is Betfred Cup is 10th of July, so that's probably the latest we could come back. There was one thing that came out, I think I said this on a Zoom the other night, one thing that came out well of the pandemic in terms of football was, we changed to just doing one session at a time because you're not allowed to shower, etc, and we felt it really worked well, and we felt we got more out of the players, so there might be the odd double, but we'll probably just be doing single sessions because we feel it worked.
And lastly, we didn't get any supporters into Firhill last season, which was a travesty. Mm-hmm. It looks possible that fans could be joining us early from next year. Yeah. Season tickets are going to go on sale next week. Yeah. What would be your message to the
Well, I would say early from next season, not early from next year, hopefully, so it'll be this year. So, listen, I mean, my target is 2,000 season tickets. No, I said this before, my target is 1,998, because I'll be buying one for Edson and his pal, that's my son, so it makes a huge difference for us. I mean, the thing with the refund thing, I mean, that was breathtaking. Was it 3%?
3%.
I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, and I always add to that the 3% that did, they're still Jags fans, so there's no doubt about that. But the target for a club like ours is 2,000. If we get that, from a purely selfish point of view, I may get the players I want, and therefore the team will be better, and therefore when the fans can come in, and I think we will get them back, and buying a season means you will get in, hopefully. I think they'll see a better team in the pitch, and the type of players I'm looking at are kind of flair type players that can beat people, etc. Obviously we need a centre back, but we need that type of player, so if we can get to that, I'll put a team in the pitch and we'll go and compete to try and do a Lambino.
It's a bold statement to finish on. Yeah.
Well, listen. It's I know it's not. It is bold, but you know the target has got to be for every Partick Thistle fan, every member of the board, every member of staff, is to try and finish in the top 4 of the league. And if you're in the top 4 of the league, you've got a chance of winning it, and that's the target.
Definitely, Gaffer. Thanks very much for your time.
Cheers, Graham.